How you doing, guys? Today I am making progress to the finish line. It's actually making me feel pretty good that I'm hoping this weekend I'll be able to start the motor up and break it in, because I've made a fair amount of progress just in the last week or so, week and a half. I've got the carburetor pretty much all set up and ready to go. I got my throttle linkage hooked up. The choke cable's hooked up at this point in time, but the throttle isn't, because I haven't mounted the foot throttle as of yet. Kind of like I did on my 857 Little Mule. I just made a little bracket up here and then mounted my return springs for my throttle. It's pretty simple. It's really not. I just used a piece of steel, bent it around, drilled a couple holes, and then just measured out where the springs need to be. So there's just, when I had the throttle on, there's just a little bit of tension, and then this thing springs back and forth, and my throttle actuates real nice and smooth, which is good. To make that little transition for the spacer, the Midwest Super Cub spacer, I made this little aluminum block. I just had a piece of aluminum bar stock, like rectangle stock. I just cut it, drilled it, tapped it, just put a bolt in the back so that way it just screws in nice and tight. Just to make it look a little better, I just drilled some holes in it, no big deal. Drilled a hole, made it thin enough that this arm, the original arm will work. It's bolted in nice and tight. The adjustment is set fairly close. Once I know it runs and the adjustment's good, I'll just touch up some paint there, and then I'll make that black. For the choke, I didn't have to do anything to it. I just mounted the rod, and it works just fine. I'll show it to you in a second. So other than the throttle, everything's hooked up to the carburetor. The fuel line is in place. I actually made a hard line for it. I took a piece of copper, soft copper tubing, 1/4 inch outer diameter. I bent it up, or manipulated it around, and once I had it all to the shape that I wanted, I just sanded it down, etch primed it, painted it black, so that way when you look at the motor, it kind of all blends in and it doesn't stick out like a sore thumb. With that being said, I mounted my electric fuel pump. So let's take a look down in here. So basically, there is the little posi pump that I got, or posi flow that I got from Napa. Gas tank's in place. The fuel line goes towards the back, wraps behind the steering shaft, obviously the fuel filter, and then it goes into the pump. I used rubber line on that because it's just easier for those connections in the back. Got some brass fittings from Home Cheapo, and I put my fuel pressure gauge in that position. So basically, if the hood's open, and let's see if it'll focus for you. So if the hood is open, you can look down and see what the fuel pressure is. Came up pretty good. I ran the wiring for the fuel pump through this little area right here. So it's all kind of hidden. Let me move around so I can, there it is. So it's a little bit hidden. All the wiring is complete in the box. The only thing I need to do is add the fuses. So that should be all set. As you can see, everything is wire loomed up. All those wires that you saw in my last video, they're all hidden and you really can't see them, which is exactly what I was looking for. Even all the way up, I put the loom. So that's all done. The gas tank is in place. I washed and cleaned it. I cleaned it the same way I cleaned the 857. I don't know if we're going to be able to see in there. Probably not. No, it's too dark. But it's clean. I just put some rocks in it with some lacquer thinner. Shook it around for about 20 minutes or so, this way, that way. Cleaned it all up. And then I just polished up the patina paint. So the gas tank is all set. The strap is in place. Everything is locked down nice and tight. So the fuel system is done. As you can see, the wiring is done. The only thing I forgot to do is I forgot to pull off all my little labeling tags. So that really kind of looks like crap. But once we close the hood, you're not going to see it. So I moved on from there. Let's see what else. Oh, everything for the belt is done. So that's all set to go. I'm going to put that and the belt guard on. The reason why I haven't had the belt guard on right now is because I wanted to show you, or attempt to show you, what all the wiring looks like. Now all of this gets covered by the belt guard. So from this direction, you're not going to see any of this. Plus I have my lid that goes on top of that. So once the engine's started and the braking process is done and there's no big issues, hopefully, then I'm just going to button that all up, the electrical. I will put the belt guard on before I start the engine, but that's where we are with that. I got the dash in. I think the dash came out pretty nice. Let's see if I can show it to you without there. It's a pretty simple layout. I didn't get too crazy with it. I did drill a couple holes, as you can tell, into the dash for the switches. I did move that's supposed to be the choke side, and this is supposed to be the throttle side. I'm right-handed, so I typically hold the steering wheel with my left hand and manipulate shit with my right. So with that, that's the reason why I put the choke on this side instead of that side. Plus, I wanted the choke cable to come down on this side of the tractor, not on that side. I just put a piece of rubber vacuum tube around it, so that way it all kind of blends in. It's black once we put the belt guard on, and from the other side you won't really see that shiny silver, classic shiny silver or nickel style choke cable. I don't mind it here, looks fine there, but over here I didn't want to see it, so that's the reason why I did that. Actuates real nice and smooth, just as it should. Stays up when it needs to stay up, and then it stays down when it needs to stay down. Ignition switch is in place, obviously 2-position accessory start. This switch, which has a little red LED light, when you click it on, the red LED light will come on. That's my fuel pump. And this one has a blue LED light, and that'll be my lights. As indicated in my last video, when I hit the start circuit, my generator light will come on and off with the starter. And the cigarette lighter is wired, it should work. I'm not a smoker, so we'll never really know. But I will say one thing, other than an NOS, this is not NOS, but when are you ever going to find a cleaner cigarette lighter than that one? I mean, this thing's pretty freaking nice. Even the housing is super clean inside too. So that's my dash. Nothing's really changed in the back section other than the wiring is complete for the little LED lights in the back. I did do some touch up here and there on some painted, like some bolt heads and stuff like that on the tractor, even on the motor too, just in preparation to buttoning it all up. I do have the air cleaner. It's all set to go. I'm going to put that on probably today. No, the goal for today is to get the belt guard on, the belt guard, the air cleaner. I'm going to show you in a second the steering wheel. Finish the steering wheel, put the steering wheel on. And I got my oil for the engine, so I'll be putting that on. Front lights are wired. They're all set to go. I'm happy about that. Everything lined up real nice. Everything looks like it's going to work out real nice. I'm hoping that it just runs. Oh, one of the other things I didn't mention before, but I'll mention now. I did replace the bearing in my idler pulley. I just got a SKF bearing off of eBay, cheap. That was the right dimensions. Drilled out the rivets and then just put it together and bolted it. Obviously, bolted the pulley back together. Everything's fine. Oops, it's rubbing against this. If you go like that, it's nice. It's fine. You know, obviously no slop. It's going to be perfect. So even the idler pulley has been replaced, or bearing has been replaced. So that shouldn't have any problems. Because usually what happens with these tractors that have been sitting around for so long, you do all this work, you put it all together, and then inevitably, 10 minutes into riding the tractor for the first time, the idler pulley starts making like a chirping noise or a squeak, or, just, like, really? I got to take this all apart. So, in any event, I did that beforehand. My shift knobs, I'll put those on real soon. I'm going to get the rear tires on it hopefully today, so it'll be standing on its own 4 legs. So it looks like it's going to come out pretty nice. Now the steering wheel. The steering wheel, I'm doing a slight like restoration on it, if you want to call it. I don't know. I don't know if I'd call it a restoration, but with these older wheel horse steering wheels, they usually look like this. You know, all kind of disgusting and dirty, and you know, it's a little bit oval too. There's really not much you can do with that. If you want to get crazy, you can put the wheel in a press and press it back into shape, but you really take the chance of cracking the plastic in a place where you can't really fix it. So I try not to do that. This wheel could have probably be straightened, but I'm not going to. But usually you get the wheels, they look like this. Dirty, oxidized, a lot of just grime. So the first thing I'll do with the steering wheel is I will take it down to my tub sink, and I'll wash it really good with Simple Green. Simple Green will take off probably about 70 to 80% of the crap that's on the wheel. I use a old wash sponge from like dishes. Like, you know, I'll ask my wife, hey, is this sponge any good? And she says, no, I'm going to replace it. I'll take it, because you know, those sponges have like a sponge side, and then they have like a Scotch-Brite side. And I want the side of the Scotch-Brite that's worn out and used, so it's not as aggressive. And then I'll wash it really well with Simple Green and one of those, and get all the 90% of the off it. The next thing I'll do is I'll steel wool it. Steel wool it down with 4-0 steel wool. And you end up with a finish that kind of, I'm hoping that it's kind of dull and smooth. There you go. Dull and smooth all the way around. From there, I'll rub, you know, I'll just take my finger and I'll go around it. And if I find a spot like this little area right there, let's see if we can get it to focus. Let me get my hand out of the way. There we go. You get like little tiny gouges. I'll very lightly hit that with a file, just to knock it down and go with the shape of the steering wheel. And that'll just make it smooth, so when I go to polish it, it'll almost blend away. And when you polish it, I use, as I always do, and I never get any kudos from mothers, but I use mother polish with a paper towel. That's the other thing I use all the time, is a paper towel. And then I just start polishing it. And it takes a little bit of time, takes a little bit of effort, your arm's going to hurt, but you go in and you just start polishing it, just like you would metal. Like any kind of metal, and you end up with a fairly nice looking situation. And I'll do the whole wheel like this. I did the back of the spokes, both sides of the inner spokes, obviously the inner hub. I've done between all the finger grooves on the steering wheel, and it just comes back and it just looks mint. They usually, you can actually even see right there, here's a difference between the steel wool and the polish. And I'll do the whole wheel. And, you know, just sit there and polish it. It takes some time, but it really makes a huge difference. And the wheel, when it gets done, actually looks super presentable. So that's just a little tip that I do in order to get these old steering wheels. And I'll even do this to an RJ wheel with the plastic ring. Just, you know, wash it, you know, do a couple little filings here and there if you need to smooth something out, and then steel wool it, polish it. Done. And if you have a little bit of a crack here and there, this wheel doesn't have any cracks. If you have a little crack, what I'll do is I'll just gouge it out with an X-Acto blade a little bit. I'll take a little bit of JB weld, put it in there, lightly sand the JB weld down to make it flat. And then I'll just put a little bit of glossy black paint on top of the JB weld, let it dry really good, and then just do the process. Steel wool it, polish it. And 99% of the time, the crack goes away. You don't even see it. And then I try to position, these wheels are easy because they're 2-spoke and they're, you know, symmetrical. If there's a crack here, I'll just put that at the bottom of the wheel. This one doesn't have a crack, but I'm just saying. You got a big blemish, just put it at the bottom of the wheel. So when you're holding the wheel like this, the blemish is at the bottom. All right, guys. Whew. Another Chuck Fuller. So hopefully the next time we see this tractor, it's going to be outside. I'm going to have it out in the driveway with all the tires on it and it ready to go. Oh, real quick, what did I, if anybody cares to know, what do I run for oil? For a break-in, I try to run kind of like a good oil, one that has that zinc and phosphorus crap in it. That way it breaks in good. All right, so the one I'm running in particular on this motor for the first time is right here. Valvoline racing oil. Straight 30, high zinc content. This is usually like about $12 a quart, but I got this off of Amazon for $8 a quart. So it was like 48 bucks, 50 bucks for that 6 quarts for me. Shipped to the door. I didn't even ask for overnight. I ordered it Monday. It came Tuesday afternoon. You really can't complain about that. I'm not a big Bezos fan, but when you need stuff in a pinch, I guess Amazon does come through. All right, guys. Thanks very much for watching. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet and like to watch little tractor builds, engine builds, little transmissions, please subscribe. I do appreciate all your support. And as always, have a good day, guys and gals. Bye.